As you can see, we have the trusty Xbox Series X here, which means we're recording footage for something. And we are recording footage for WWE 2K25. I ended up picking up the Deadman edition of the game, which gave me a week early access and some other goodies. And then I told Xbox that I lived in New Zealand, so I got to play it even earlier. So I've been playing this game a bunch, and I definitely have some thoughts about it. I want to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly for WWE 2K25. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Without any further ado, let's hop into the game, brother. All right, so there's a bunch of new stuff that's been added into WWE 2K25, but the first thing I want to highlight is the menu system. The menu system is much cleaner and much crisper and faster and more responsive than it was in WWE 2K24. And considering you're going to be in the menus, quite a bit to mess around with settings or download stuff, I definitely appreciate it. I think it's a lot better. This is also pretty cool as well. Gives you a little image of all of the different match types, and it's very snappy. The new match types, of course, are Bloodline rules, which has it where you can bring in people. There's a brawl mode with some different outside arenas and some sort of different areas that you can visit that were different than in WWE 2K24. All of the match types from WWE 2K24, such as the casket and the ambulance match, did make it into this game as well. And there's also the underground, which, I mean, it's pretty strange, but it's not the end of the world. We'll take a look at that as well. And of course, you have a bunch of different arenas. Now, a lot of these arenas are kind of locked behind things like the My Rise, which is the single player campaign where you create a wrestler and go through a story mode. I don't really like that. I don't really do that. I'm not playing this game for that. So, I might just download some equivalents once they come up on the downloadable content section of the game. But there are quite a few arenas. Some of them you also unlock in the showcase mode, which actually surprised me. And then, of course, you have the roster. And once again, much like I just said about the arena, some of this stuff is locked behind the My Rise and the showcase mode in order to get them unlocked. But, I guess it does kind of add a little bit of incentive to go in there. The roster itself is absolutely massive with some weird variants such as Super Cena there. But there is a huge roster of characters. Of course, they've also announced they're going to be doing DLC such as New Jack from ECW. So I'm super stoked on that. I'm not going to go through the whole roster. You can look it up online. But it is a very beefy roster. A new thing that they've added into WWE 2K25 is the ability to change the camera on entrances. You can actually have full control over it. So, like, here's the standard one, and then here's with me in control. Seems like a little thing, and, maybe to some degree it is, but I like this. It gives a little added immersion into it. You can also do, like, a spectator view, which is like if you're out in the crowd watching the wrestlers have an entrance. It's just a nice little touch, something that you might not use a whole lot, but if you're doing, like, simulations or stuff like that, like, I think it will have some value. So here's the underground mode. Essentially what this is knockout or submission, and there's no ropes, and there's people around the ring. And I don't really know why. It's interesting. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, but not quite as unique, I would say, because, that's also like not wrestling. It is wrestling, but it's not really pro wrestling. It's more based on like MMA and amateur style wrestling, where this is like essentially a normal match just with a ring with no ropes, no turnbuckles, and for some reason there's random NPCs surrounding the ring. Scott Steiner's not happy. He wants to attack all of them. You can attack them. I think the mode's okay. It's not something I see myself, probably playing very often. It is limited to one-on-one as well, but I guess it's kind of neat. It's a little bit different. It's like that Raw Underground that was a thing very briefly when Shane McMahon was heading that up, trying to give it a little MMA flair. But since the gameplay just feels like exactly the same as it would in a normal match, it kind of loses a little bit of its luster for me. But I'm not going to complain too much about an additional mode that's been added into the game. Backstage Brawl has been expanded. Instead of the standard areas that you had in WWE 2K24, there's now WWE Archives, 2 different areas you can start in, and then the Parking Lot Brawl. I actually think the Parking Lot Brawl is pretty cool. I think, having this large parking lot and a bunch of toys at your disposal is kind of neat. You know, it's a bit different. I like the aesthetic of it. I like how big it is. You'll kind of see here. I'll kind of show you guys a bit more of the area. There's like that little scaffold area. There's cars littered throughout. There's the ambulance that you can obviously jump off of. There's all sorts of weaponry all over the place. You know, if you're wanting to do some sort of crazy spot fest out in the parking lot, like, you could definitely do something like that with this. So I kind of like this. You know, I'm always more for the hardcore related stuff. Once that New Jack DLC hits, you know, I will be jumping off the highest areas possible onto people, through tables, through cars, whatever the case may be. I did notice you can only set up the ladder in certain areas. It wouldn't let me set up the ladder like right here, which was kind of annoying. But, you know, I think this area has a lot of possibility, and it's always nice to see additional stuff put into the game. Then we have the Bloodline mode, which is absolutely crazy, and I absolutely love it because I'm obviously Hollywood Hogan here. And what happens is when you get beat up enough, you can trigger so that someone runs in to help you. And for Hogan, it triggers Hall, Nash, and Six, which I absolutely love for Hollywood Hogan because, I mean, that's who would come out. And I'm facing Roddy Piper here, and for Piper, it was DDP, Booker T, and Lex Luger. So, like, just super cool. Like, that little attention to detail actually goes a long way for me because that's who would come out and help Hollywood Hogan. And these are Hollywood Hogan's enemies that are coming out to fight against him. So I really like this. Once again, it's not a mode that, you know, is probably like super high up on the list, but it adds that sort of wild card, that variable to where you can call in the help. And, like, it really should have just been like NWO mode, if we're being honest here, like, because I mean, this is a perfect example of how the NWO operated back in the day. The showcase mode focuses mostly on the Bloodline, which I'm not super huge into them, but I appreciate the older stuff here. And something that really struck me as awesome was just how they handled some of these moments, because it is very accurate. So here's King of the Ring in 1993, where Yokozuna beat Hulk Hogan to win the belt. And if you know anything about this match, there is a certain thing that happens that kind of changes the tide of the match. And going into this, I honestly did not expect that to be a thing. I did notice that you can hear Jimmy Hart on the outside doing his little cackle into the microphone. Mr. Fuji is also ringside as well for this, so really good attention to detail. But once you see what I'm talking about, like, it just hits so much harder. There are different objectives that you have to do in order to unlock different characters. This is how you actually unlock base Hulk Hogan in the game from the older era. This is also how you unlock Yokozuna. There's a bunch of different unlockables that you can get, you know, mostly tied to the Bloodline, like the head shrinkers, Haku, stuff like that. But I like this. This is actually, it's actually a well done, you know, showcase mode for it. And I think that, you know, having sort of the backstory, you have members of the Bloodline, like, talking about the historical value of things. You can see Mr. Fuji here getting up on the ringside. And then here's the moment that I was like, wow, I can't believe they put that into the game, is the photographer spot, which is what really turned the tide of the match, where a photographer gets on the ring, it explodes in Hogan's face, and then boom. So very, very cool. Very, very nice attention to detail there as well. As far as the gameplay is concerned, I think the gameplay is definitely more refined. It seems like the stamina is a bit more realistic, so you can't just, like, spam stuff over and over again. They kind of made the striking a little bit better when you do, like, the strike. You're like, one person strikes and another person strikes. They also put in chain wrestling as well. I honestly haven't really figured it out quite yet. You could see CM Punk just kind of pushes me into a corner. I didn't know what the game wanted me to do, but it is nice to see chain wrestling come back into the game. That was something that a lot of people had been asking for when you get into the more realistic stuff as far as the game is concerned. So there's a lot of good. You know, there is a lot of good with this game, and I've been having an absolute blast with certain sections of the game. But, you know, when there's good, there also has to be, well, a little bit of bad. So here is the island. We have our gay blue-collar worker there. Like, what is that outfit? He looks like a male stripper or something like that. But basically what this is the predatory mode, in which we want your money. And I was disgusted when I saw this being added into it, especially considering, like, you could do something on the wrestling side of things. You could add more stuff into it like that instead of just trying to take money from people. And you'll see the predatory aspect with this. You basically create your character, give them a style that you want them to do. You get some attributes put into there, and then you're thrust into the island. Now, actually getting into the island, there is a very long load time. And every time you go into a building in the island, like, it's literally like over a minute long every time. And like, I don't know, it doesn't feel right to me. I feel like it should be a bit snappier. So here I am on the island with a bunch of other boobs running around here. Oh, let's go to the barber shop. Let's see how much it is to get a haircut, you know? Can't be that much. I know, you know, the economy is not in the best spot right now, but you know, it can't be all that much. Oh, 9,000 virtual currency. Well, I'm sure we earn a lot of virtual currency by doing things on the island. Here I am fighting Flex Mignon. Yeah, I mean, the arena's kind of cool, but like, to me, it's like, I don't play a WWE game to play as like randos. I don't play an NBA game to play as randos. I want to play as the players or the athletes or, you know, the wrestlers from my childhood and stuff like that. I know people get really sucked into things like this, and I'm very thankful that I've never been one of those people, because some people spend like thousands of dollars on this stuff. And like, yeah, I guess it's kind of neat to add in a different mode, but I definitely don't like it because it definitely feels very, very predatory. And you'll see kind of where I'm coming from in that regard in just a second, because yes, you do earn virtual currency and stuff like that just by playing. But when you see how much virtual currency you get, it's not a lot. I got 170 virtual currency for that, and it costs 9,000 for a haircut. And there's already some jackass who's a 99 overall, level 15, waiting for me to challenge him. And it's just like, I don't know, man. You know, maybe you like that sort of stuff, but for me, that is definitely the bad of it, because I feel like it could have been, you know, effort could have been put into a different part of the game. And then the ugly. This is kind of nitpicky, but this 1990s Undertaker looks terrible. And this was one of the bonuses that I got for getting the Dead Man edition. You did not even try here. And I did notice that some character models definitely don't look like super good. And this was definitely one of them. And I was very disappointed in this. As someone who's been watching The Undertaker since 1990, Survivor Series 90 when it debuted, this is not him. And he doesn't have brother love with him. And like, Bruce Pritchard is a part of WWE. They just released a Bruce Pritchard figure. So it just feels very half-assed. Like, this does not look like the 1990s Undertaker. And it kind of pisses me off a bit. But, you know, that's kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. Some of the character models are definitely, you know, when you look at a character that's been made for WWE 2K25 versus one for WWE 2K24, you can kind of notice a little bit of a difference, especially if you look closely. But overall, you know, I think it's a pretty good game. I'm really liking like the core game. The Bloodline showcase definitely has been more interesting than I thought it was going to be, and I do like that there's a lot of the older things tied into it as well, the matches I'm familiar with. So overall, you know, I'm pretty happy with this game. It definitely feels like an expansion of WWE 2K24, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing in this case. They built upon that game. They added in a bunch of new stuff. Some of it works better than others, but overall, I'm definitely pleased with this. So let me know in the comment section down below. Are you interested in this game? And if so, did you pick it up, the early edition, or are you going to wait a week and get the standard edition? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.